Welcome to the Kino Cave, and today I'm going to be talking about Season 2 of Better Call Saul. So, it took me a while to get around to this season. I don't even remember how long ago I reviewed Season 1, but we got here. It's good. It takes me a while to finish TV shows, especially ones like Better Call Saul and shows that are like that, because I don't tend to want to binge watch shows like that. I'm one of those people where I'm a week to week kind of guy, and I can't really watch TV shows, especially ones like Better Call Saul, where the kind of writing and the production is so higher level, where I want to really take my time with it and give it my full attention. Whereas if I'm watching something like a sitcom or like something that I binge watch, I kind of care less. I'll watch it on my phone, or I'll do other stuff while I'm watching it. But with stuff like Better Call Saul, I want to give it my full attention and my full time. So, ramble of excuses over. I found this season to be really good, a lot better than season 1. It's probably on the level of like a season 2 or 3 of Breaking Bad right now, but still not like crazy good. Like, I've heard people say that Better Call Saul in its full run is better than Breaking Bad. I've yet to see that yet. I still think that there's parts of Better Call Saul that just aren't as good as Breaking Bad, but nevertheless, this season is definitely a big step up from season 1. I saw a lot of stuff that I took issue with in season 1, specifically the development of characters like Kim and the relationships between them. That got a lot better. I found that the development of Jimmy and Mike, it just got a lot better balanced. There wasn't like one standout episode with Mike that ended up being better than any episode with Jimmy, which was sort of a give and take, kind of a good and bad thing about season 1. But overall, this season's definitely much better and much more consistently great compared to season 1. So the character of Jimmy definitely got a lot better this season. I think he was much more compelling, and I think he was much more evenly balanced throughout this season. He got a lot to do, he got a lot more development spread throughout the season, and he is definitely as compelling as Mike, whereas Mike was much more compelling and I wanted to see more of him in season 1 rather than Jimmy, because Jimmy's storylines just weren't as interesting as Mike's. But now they definitely have the same level of interest from me. An issue that I'd had with season 1 was the development of the relationship between Jimmy and Kim and Jimmy and Chuck. I found that the development of Jimmy and Chuck's relationship was really more in the back half of season 1, and I found the relationship between him and Kim to just be really undercooked altogether. But in this season, it's definitely ramped up a lot more. I was glued to the scenes between Jimmy and Chuck and seeing their almost rivalry build up like that, and seeing how far each of them will go to kind of bust the other one. I also found that the relationship between Jimmy and Kim was really developed a lot more. I saw a lot more from them romantically, but also them working together as attorneys and kind of figuring out what they want to do working together. And I love how Jimmy inspired Kim to kind of go forward with her career rather than just be this corporate drone. Moving on to Mike, I really enjoyed him in this season. I think that he definitely gets just as much to do this season as he did in the last season. I think that his kind of storyline with the cartel was really good. I found his storylines to just be really interesting. I find that with Jimmy, you get a lot of the kind of legal stuff and the law stuff. Mike kind of reminds you that this is a show within the Breaking Bad world, because Mike is dealing with the cartel, he's dealing with criminals, and he even meets a lot of characters from Breaking Bad. So I feel like Mike is still your anchor to Breaking Bad, while Jimmy goes from this journey of being just to being unjust, because it's taking a while for Jimmy to kind of fully delve himself into the criminal world. He, dips his toes in a bit more in this season, but he's definitely nowhere near Saul Goodman yet. But I loved the episodes with Mike facing the cartel and seeing him go through it and seeing him kind of change up his reasoning for being against them, because the pressure really starts to mount on Mike, especially in the kind of later half of this season, as his reasons for working with the cartel and kind of working against them starts to change. Just one spoiler-free negative that I found with this season is that Jimmy and Mike don't get a lot to do together. They have some time together, specifically in the first half of the season, but after that they're very much separate and doing their own thing. And I think while that can be good, as I get to see these two characters from Breaking Bad, which I love, and seeing them go through their own journeys and seeing what leads them to become the people that they are when we get to Breaking Bad, I find that I would have liked to have them cross over a bit more, maybe to bring the season kind of full circle a bit more, because now it feels like I'm watching two mini shows within one show. And I'm not necessarily complaining about getting, all these great storylines, but I think if they could cross over a bit more, if their paths could cross, maybe Jimmy remains being kind of Mike's pro bono lawyer or something like that. I think it would have been just nice to have it kind of come full circle and have them cross over a bit more. So I hope that in season 3 and the subsequent seasons, Mike and Jimmy have a lot more to do together rather than having their own separate stories. So my final kind of spoiler-free thoughts on this season: it's a very good season. It is much better than season 1. I found that they'd fixed a lot of the problems that I had with season 1, specifically with pacing and balancing the show and the characters and the writing. It's not really reaching the heights of Breaking Bad yet. I think it's about as good as some of the worst seasons of Breaking Bad, which is to say, like, look, the worst season of Breaking Bad is, like, better than the best seasons of most shows out today. But I think it's just around that level for me right now. Season 2 of Better Call Saul, it's about as good as a season 2 or 3 of Breaking Bad right now. Okay, I'm gonna get deep into spoilers for season 2 of Better Call Saul now, so if you're like me and you're arriving at this show very, very late, maybe switch off the video now, go watch the season. It's a great season, and then come back to hear my thoughts on the rest of the season. One thing that I really admire about Better Call Saul that I think a lot of stuff, especially in the last 5 years or so, really fails to do is getting fan service done correctly. Because in this season, we get returning characters from Breaking Bad, such as Tuco, and one of my favorites, and I went insane when I saw it, but Ken from that one episode of Breaking Bad, that asshole with the red car with the Ken Wins license plates. I'm amazed that he came back, and I love how this asshole comes into the world of Breaking Bad, comes into these shows, and he's just an absolute prick, and he never learns anything, but by the end of the episode he always gets his comeuppance, like in Breaking Bad when his car gets totaled, and in this season of Better Call Saul, he gets scammed by Jimmy and Kim. So yeah, I think that Better Call Saul it could very easily fall into the trap of doing tons of fan service, bringing in Tuco and having him say tight, 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 and bring in, a cameo from Bryan Cranston, and maybe fucking, I don't know, Jimmy trips over Jesse Pinkman or something like that, and Jesse Pinkman's like, yo, watch where you going, bitch. It could very easily do that, and the average audience member would go absolutely nuts for it, and it'd be like tons of fan service, but at the end of the day, it would be for cheap points, and it wouldn't actually be the show's great writing that's winning you over. It is reminding you of a better show. And that's something that a lot of movies and TV shows do today, where you'll have a show or a movie and they'll bring back a cast member from the previous thing from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and it'll do a ton of fan service, and then people will go nuts for it, and then they get more views and more money and all that sort of thing. But Better Call Saul shows remarkable restraint with this, especially stuff with Tuco. Because Tuco's there, and it's definitely fan service, and Crazy 8 shows up as well. And it is sort of to just make you do the Leonardo DiCaprio thing of like, oh, it's the guy from Breaking Bad season 1. While it is fan service, it's there for a reason. It's not there for just no reason. Like, Tuco crosses paths with Mike and Crazy 8 because it makes sense. Like, they would cross paths. So while it's fan service, it's very good fan service. And they don't just have Tuco say tight, 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 or like, they don't have Crazy 8 like spewing lines and like foreshadowing stuff or anything like that. No, it's just, they come in, they meet Mike because they would be involved with Mike because Mike's involved with the cartel. Tuco would be a part of that. Crazy 8 would be a smaller part of that. And it makes a lot of sense. And so it's fan service, but I don't mind it because it's good writing on top of that. So to get more into Kim and how she's done a lot better in season 2 rather than season 1, she doesn't get much development or much to do in season 1. She's just kind of the female friend of Jimmy. But in season 2, she really gets her own, she comes into her own a lot more. She's kind of this underdog attorney. She's trying to keep her head down at Hamlin McGill, and she's just trying to move up in the law world or whatever you want to call it. But she ends up becoming more of like this underdog, and she leaves Hamlin McGill and ends up becoming her own kind of lawyer and doing things her own way. And while she faces lots of obstacles with that, you just love to see her overcome those obstacles and get her a few wins, and then you feel bad when she gets her few losses as well. And I absolutely loved that. I think Kim gets so much more development in this season on her own and with Jimmy. One thing as well about this season, and kind of a pattern I'm seeing with Better Call Saul, is it seems that Better Call Saul is doing this thing where each season they'll have like a really annoying character, because it was the Kettlemans in season 1, and in season 2 it's Price, that guy who's like stealing the medicine and selling it to the cartel, and he has this giant fucking yellow crossing sign of a fucking car, and he's so irritating. Like, he was irritating at the start, but the thing that really made me like annoyed at him, for like, he's meant to get you annoyed at him, and I really like just loved hating on him so much. But the moment that really sold that for me is when he said that, like, I'm not a criminal, I'm just selling this stuff, but that doesn't make me a criminal. And Mike has to tell him, no, you are stealing things and selling it to bad people. You are a criminal. It's just, I hated him so much. And then he has stolen stuff and sold it to the cartel, and he decides to call the cops when his baseball cards get stolen. You idiot. I just loved hating on that character so much, and I wouldn't mind if, like, each season of Better Call Saul, just a new asshole comes in that you just love to hate, and you can't wait to see him kind of get their comeuppance and all that, because, in fairness, Price doesn't necessarily get their comeuppance as a criminal, but he does have a pretty embarrassing moment where he has to pretend that he makes, like, weird fetish videos. So I absolutely loved that. One issue I have with the start of this season is Jimmy's kind of quick decision making in episode 1, because he wants to go work for Davis and Maine, and he goes for the interview. And I remember, I think in season 1 I mentioned that I didn't like how he just switched up his decision like that, but I was fine with it to kind of get him to kind of come into this more criminal world. But that lasts all of like half an hour, because like at the end of like episode 1, he kind of has his bit of fun scamming people and stuff, and then he just goes back to Davis and Maine and decides to be like a good lawyer again. Again, I think he's making these decisions a bit too quickly and a bit too. He's switching up too much. However, one thing that I do love about Jimmy's being in Davis and Maine is that he's a real fish out of water because he's used to kind of doing his own thing in terms of being a lawyer, and he has to conform to all these rules, and he has to kind of live among these like weird suck-ups who are all about the rules and all that. And Jimmy's kind of the type of guy where he will break some rules if it means getting justice for these people, but the people at Davis and Maine are not about that. And then when he wants to leave, he realizes that in order to get his bonus, he needs to be fired without cause. So what I love is he just starts acting like a prick, and he's just this complete asshole. And it's so funny because even though his boss knows what he's doing, he just can't stand Jimmy so much that he has to just fire him for being a prick. You feel the sense of justice for Jimmy when he gets fired and he's able to get his bonus, because he's just a prick. That's the thing about, I think, Jimmy, and when he becomes Saul in Breaking Bad, the kind of thing that you love about him is that he's just such an asshole. Just kind of plot stuff that I really like as well. I like how Jimmy and Kim set up kind of joint law firms. Like, they're separate, but they share an office. And I really like that. I think one thing about Breaking Bad that's really, really cool is that they do a lot to flesh out the world. And kind of, I don't know, I just really like the idea of Jimmy and Kim setting up their own kind of office and their own law firms. There's a really great sense of kind of progression in the plot and in their kind of story, and it feels real as well. It feels just really kind of satisfying seeing this progression. And this is something that Breaking Bad does really well, as as Walt and Jesse upgrade from cooking meth in a van or in an RV to then getting this giant meth lab to then kind of creating like a cover business in season 5. I loved seeing the progression in Better Call Saul and in Breaking Bad. I guess it's kind of the completionist in me, where it's like, you just keep improving all the time, and Jimmy just keeps improving because, in season 1, he's largely working out the back of a nail salon, a hair salon, some kind of a salon, and then he upgrades to Davis and Maine, but he's not happy there. But then he gets this really nice office, and he gets to work for himself, and he gets to work with Kim, and it's just really, it's just nice. I feel like some things that like TV shows don't get right sometimes is that sometimes a character is allowed to just have a win. And sometimes it's just nice to have something nice happen to these characters before something dramatic happens to them. Probably my favorite thing from this season, though, is Jimmy and Chuck's rivalry evolving. Chuck is a really great villain. I think in the Breaking Bad universe, he might actually be one of the best villains. Like, maybe second or third behind Gus as a villain in the Breaking Bad world. I'm really starting to love their rivalry. And again, just seeing how far each of them will go to sort of destroy each other. Because, Jimmy kind of has a moment where he, pays the guy from the copy place to lie to Chuck and all that, but then Chuck kind of has his attack with the electricity and things like that, and Jimmy eventually decides to save Chuck and all that and sort of takes care of him, but Chuck is just like still relentlessly trying to take down Jimmy, and he just has this intense hatred for Jimmy just because Jimmy is finding a way to survive and move forward with his life, but because he didn't go through maybe the right channels, because he maybe dipped his toe into the criminal world every once in a while, Chuck just can't stand that. And so he's really willing to manipulate Jimmy and everyone around Jimmy in order to out Jimmy as this bad person. I'm just really starting to care about this rivalry because Jimmy also just kind of wants to make his way through the world however he wants, and Chuck is getting in the way of that. So now he's also trying to sabotage Chuck by, changing the address and the documents and all that, and he's also doing a lot of it for Kim, which is really nice. Like, although Jimmy might not be going about it the right way, he's just trying to make life better for himself and Kim. But Chuck just can't see that. And although Chuck goes through the right channels, he's still being very manipulative, especially towards Kim. And I'm really starting to love that kind of rivalry, that kind of relationship. And I just love seeing it evolve, and I can't wait to see how this goes in season 3. Because I can only imagine that the pressure is going to mount even more. So I just want to end this video with my sort of wants for season 3, because I've not started season 3 yet. Full disclosure, I kind of wrote this review like 2 weeks ago, and I've just not gotten around to recording it yet because I had Comic-Con and I had stuff going on last week, and it's just I've been busy. So I've been taking a bit of a hiatus from Better Call Saul. I've been kind of watching some other shows that I care about less, but I'm ready to get back into Better Call Saul season 3 now. And some of the things I really want to see from this next season would be, for one thing, I want to see Mike and Jimmy working together more. Sort of maybe Jimmy becoming more of Mike's lawyer, and maybe Mike does some jobs for Jimmy as well. Less than legal jobs for him. Just, I want to see them working together more, and I want to see their relationship develop a bit more, because I think we've gotten less of that in this season as compared to last season. I also want to see Chuck lean more into his villain role. I want to see him develop more as a villain, as a foil for Jimmy. Like, I really want him to become the antagonist of the show, at least for a little bit. As far as I know, I think Gus shows up again, but I definitely want to see Chuck get developed more as a villain for Jimmy, a specific villain for Jimmy. And one final thing, and it's sort of a complaint about this season and kind of the show in general, although it's a nitpick, I guess. I'm starting to really kind of crave Saul. Like, the show is called Better Call Saul, and Saul's name's been mentioned once. So I think in season 3, I really kind of want to see Jimmy start to become Saul Goodman more. Like, maybe we get a little bit of a name drop, maybe he considers it or something, but I definitely want to see him start leaning more into that role. Like, I don't care if he doesn't buy the office in the kind of strip mall or gets the Statue of Liberty thing. Like, I don't mind any of that. Like, that's whatever, but I want to see Jimmy start leaning into the Saul Goodman stuff more, because we've gotten very little of that in the first 2 seasons, and I admire the restraint to not just immediately start with him, becoming Saul or whatever. Although it has been 2 seasons now, I would really like to start seeing more of the Saul Goodman stuff, because I've had a lot of great development with Jimmy now, so I think it's time for him to start, becoming Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad. But, slowly, like, not just straight away, but over the course of the next season, and maybe the season 4 as well. Just, every couple of episodes, something kind of Saul Goodman-esque happens. So, those are my thoughts on Better Call Saul Season 2. This review is probably shit because I finished the season like 2.5 weeks ago, and it's kind of hard to remember it now, but I hope this turns out good in the final video. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Better Call Saul Season 2. I can't wait to get into Season 3 and talk about it for you guys. I love that I get to kind of go through this journey of watching this really popular show, and I get to talk about it on YouTube. So absolutely subscribe, like this video if you liked it, comment what your thoughts on Better Call Saul Season 2 are, and if you're watching the show along with me. And definitely subscribe, because the Better Call Saul Season 3 video will come out in the future whenever I get to finish, write, and record the video. I just said the word Saul Goodman-esque in a YouTube video. What's that about?